Alexis Lafreniere is completely unstoppable. We break down his 5-point night. We talk about Jonathan Quick making history and Chris Kreider scoring 300 goals. Can he become the Rangers' all-time leader?
You're Locked on the New York Rangers, your daily podcast on the New York Rangers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back, Blue Shirts fans, to episode number 1036 of the Locked On New York Rangers podcast. I'm your host, John Chick. Just want to thank you guys, as always, for making Locked On New York Rangers your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. And today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by Sleeper. Download the Sleeper app and use promo code LOCKEDONNHL to get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. And we are, of course, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So the Rangers sort of take care of business. I mean, they got the win. They got the 2 points. They go on the road to play the Arizona Coyotes, and they come away with an 8-5 victory, kind of reminiscent of the Flyer game where they got a little bit leaky in the third period and made the game a little bit more interesting than I'm sure they would have liked in this case. But bottom line, they did get the 2 points. And you do have to give some credit to the Coyotes. I thought they really grinded in this game and really battled and obviously, stayed in the game and almost completed a comeback. And then you also got to give some props to the Rangers for at least holding them off in the end. And of course, there was a lot going on in this game. For what this game may have lacked as far as, defensive structure for the Rangers and, finishing the way that you would like to see them finish the game, it made up for in theatrics and milestones achieved because Jonathan Quick and Chris Kreider both hit pretty significant milestones. Obviously, Alexis Lafreniere, his first hat trick of his career. Jacob Trouba back into the lineup. So despite this win not being perfect for the Rangers, we got a lot to talk about here. And there are some good things to come out of this game for sure, including, I think, kind of debated this, but we got to start with Jonathan Quick. He becomes the all-time record holder for the most wins by an American-born goalie with 392. He tied the record in his last start, and now he breaks it in this one. He ends up stopping 27 of 32 shots in this game. He was very good early. And then the Rangers, again, they had that third period where they just kind of lost it defensively and they allowed the Coyotes to get back into the game. And of course, Trouba was back and they put him with Miller. And that's something we'll discuss more in a future episode. Should the Rangers roll with K'Andre Miller and Braden Schneider together? And maybe you go with Trouba and either Zach Jones or Eric Gustafsson, just depending on who's in the lineup. That could certainly be debated. But again, the man of the hour for me, Jonathan Quick. It is kind of, I guess funny, ironic that one of the best goalies that we've ever seen, one of the best goalies of this generation or really any generation, he has this history-making night. Again, win number 392 to sit alone in first place of all time. He does this on a night where he allows 5 goals. And I'm sure, would Quick have liked to have had a night where he got a shutout or only allowed 1 or 2 goals on the night where he gets the record? I'm sure that's probably the case. And obviously, doing that only increases the Rangers' chance to win. So he would like it from that perspective. But bottom line, not everything can be absolutely perfect all the time. And I'm sure he'll take, this 392nd win of his career and being the American-born goalie with the most career wins. Amazing career regardless of, how this one went. But the bottom line, they won. He won. His teammates, you could tell how happy they were for him after the game. They basically mobbed him. Igor Shesterkin gave him a big hug. You had Zach Jones going and finding the puck that was, in play as the game ended there, and the Rangers were up by 3 goals. So Jones was kind of Johnny on the spot there, making sure to get that puck for Jonathan Quick. And I figure, we've talked about Quick a lot this season. I did want to just mention, though, and obviously it's his first year with the Rangers, and, he obviously made a name for himself during his Hall of Fame career, put together that Hall of Fame resume, mostly while playing with the Kings. But I did want to just point out a couple of facts here because we do this when it comes to other Ranger players, and we might as well do it for Quick. When Jonathan Quick was drafted, it wasn't until the 3rd round. And I've done episodes in the past on here where, we talk about how Henrik Lundqvist was taken in the 7th round and there were 21 goalies drafted in front of him. We've talked about Igor Shesterkin, 4th round pick, 12 goalies drafted in front of him. With Quick, it's not quite on that level, but there were 7 goalies taken in front of Jonathan Quick when he was drafted in 2005. And most of them there's some other good goalies here, as you'll find out in just a second, but most of them can't even hold a candle to Jonathan Quick. But to quickly run through the list of goalies taken in 2005, drafted before Jonathan Quick was, you've got Carey Price, Tuukka Rask. So obviously two very good goalies there in their own right. But then it kind of falls off a cliff. After that, you've got Tyler Plant, Jeff Frazee, former New York Ranger Andre Pavlich, Pierre Olivier, Pierre Olivier Pelletier, and then Christopher Westblom, and then Jonathan Quick. So a couple of those teams certainly messed up. Obviously, look, nobody knows for sure, and you never know what can happen. And who knew that Jonathan Quick was going to have this Hall of Fame career? But given a do-over, I'm sure a lot of those teams would like to take it there in that draft. But of course, the 3 Stanley Cups, 2 with the Kings, 1 is the backup with Vegas last year. And his first run of the Stanley Cup was basically otherworldly. The regular season that year, a 195 goals against average and a 929 save percentage. Then the playoffs, he really outdid himself. 16-4 record, 141 goals against average, 946 save percentage. The Kings were the 8th seed in the playoffs that year, and it didn't matter. He was basically a human cheat code for them. I believe they only lost 4 total games that entire run that they had to the Stanley Cup that season. And then, of course, for the Rangers this year, they really had some choices to make this offseason when it came to their backup goalie. You could always bring Yaroslav Halak back for another year. And then, we were throwing out some names on here. I did an episode where we were looking at backup goalie options. David Riddick was somebody that I liked. Alex Nedeljkovic was somebody I threw out there as well. And I think any of them would have been, okay choices. But Jonathan Quick, he was one of the picks that I threw out there as well. And hard to imagine that it would have gone better with any of those goalies or really any other goalie that was available to be had as a backup this offseason as it's gone for Jonathan Quick. Ranger fans, already love the guy, despite the fact that, of course, he beat the Rangers in the Cup Finals 10 years ago. But the Rangers, they sign him, and initially, fans are split. Some people like it, some people don't. But even for the people like me who, mostly like the move, I think it was from a perspective of like the intangibles, everything that I mentioned a second ago. Great teammate, championship pedigree, somebody that, maybe as a backup goalie, he can kind of, lighter workload and he can turn back the clock a little bit. But as far as what he's done on the ice and purely from a statistical perspective, I don't think that, anybody, even the most optimistic Ranger and or Quick fan, could have thought it would have gone this well. 17-5-2, 254 goals against average, 913 save percentage. And you know what? Never bet against a legend, because the great ones always find a way to, even as they're getting toward the end of their career, they'll find a way to get whatever they've got left in them, empty the tank, so to speak, and make some adjustments and, have a couple of strong seasons at the very end. And that's what Jonathan Quick is certainly doing this year. And, not just the stats, but the fact that he stepped in for Igor on 2 separate occasions this year. Earlier when, Igor got injured and Jonathan Quick had to step in then. He did an awesome job, in the early parts of the season. And then later, obviously, Igor went through his struggles, and he seems to be doing great now, but he really went through his struggles. And obviously, they needed Quick to step up, and he was able to do that. So that was just great to see. And of course, then he gets the 1-year extension in the middle of this season for $1.275 million. That's up from his $825K contract this year. It's a little bit more than I thought the Rangers might look to spend on a backup goalie, but you know what? That's worth every penny when you just look at how well he's played and how much he seems to be beloved and appreciated in that Ranger locker room. So, yeah, can't say a whole lot much else. I mean, Jonathan Quick, you guys know as well as I do, just a living legend in this league and just a phenomenal season for the New York Rangers. We're going to keep everything rolling in just a second. I want to turn our attention to Alexis Lafreniere and his ongoing takeover of the NHL, and we will get to that in just a second. First, though, we would definitely like to let everybody know that today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by our good friends at Sleeper. It is down the stretch of the regular season, Ranger fans, and the Rangers have been on top of the Metro from coast to coast. But regardless of where we are in the current standings, I want to remind you that you could win big by playing daily fantasy hockey on Sleeper, the official daily fantasy app of the Locked On NHL Network. Sleeper is our number one choice for daily fantasy sports and especially daily fantasy hockey, because with Sleeper, you can win 100 times your cash in daily fantasy hockey contests. All you have to do is pick whether studs like Panarin or Igor or Kreider or Quick will record more or less in their Sleeper projections for things like goals, assists, saves, plus, minus, and more in a given game. To win 100 times your bet on Sleeper, you need to correctly predict the outcome of 8-player stats. You heard me, Ranger fans. You can win 100 times your money playing daily fantasy hockey with Sleeper. So start paying attention and nail your picks so you can start winning big. Use promo code LOCKEDONNHL, and you'll get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. That's code LOCKEDONNHL. See Sleeper's terms of use for details and locational availability. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports Today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. All right, so we will go ahead and keep everything rolling here. Alexis Lafreniere. I mean, you talk about a breakout season. People were kind of wondering, like, well, should we classify this as like a true breakout, or is this kind of like a mini breakout? I mean, I think at this point you can call it a breakout season. There's people that have different ideas of exactly what that means. Maybe for some, given the fact that he was the number one pick, 4 years ago, maybe for those people, you got to be like point per game player for it to be a real breakout. But he's just been awesome. And of course, he goes off for a 5-point night. That includes a hat trick with the empty netter with about 15 seconds to go in the game, sealing it. And of course, given that the Rangers have about 14 different away arenas now, and this being one of them, a lot of hats thrown onto the ice for Lafreniere when he buried that empty netter. But I just want to also point out the fact that line in general, Lafreniere, Trocheck, Panarin, they were a combined plus 15 on the night. And by the way, Lafreniere, the guy with 5 points, he technically had the worst plus minus of the three of them. He was a +4, Panarin +5, Trocheck +6. That's just kind of funny to think about. He was kind of the anchor of that line last night, I suppose. But yeah, I mean, again, there can't be anybody left, Ranger fan or otherwise, that truly believes that this guy is a bust at this point. The floor right now for him seems remarkably safe. If he never gets any better than he's at right now, at the age of 22, mind you, he's going to be a heck of a player in this league. But when you look at, again, the draft pedigree, the fact that everybody said this guy is the slam dunk, no doubt, first overall pick this year, and the fact that he now gets to play in the top 6, and with Panarin and with Trocheck, I know there's some people wanting to move him onto the top power play unit as well, and maybe that's something we'll discuss in a future episode. But yeah, I mean, the sky is the limit. The floor is extraordinarily safe at this point, and the sky seems borderline limitless for what Alexis Lafreniere can do going forward. And as I said in a recent episode, when he had 2 goals not too long ago, it's not even a surprise when he plays like this anymore. You just kind of come to expect it. And so we had the hat trick, and obviously, we're going to talk about that a little bit, but I actually wanted to start by spotlighting a play that Lafreniere had a hand in. He ends up with a secondary assist, but this was just a phenomenal start to the second period by the Rangers. I really wanted to highlight this, and again, given that Lafreniere ended up with the assist here, we might as well go ahead and do that right now. So the Rangers are up 1-0 going into the second period, and just an unreal first shift, or I guess first 2 shifts, even though there was no play stoppage by the Rangers. You had the Mika Zibanejad line out there to start the second period, and Miller and Trouba were out there as far as the defensemen. They got the puck deep, all kinds of, puck movement. You had Trouba a couple of times looking to set up Jack Roslovic for a deflection, weren't quite able to connect there. Of course, Jacob Trouba making his return to the lineup, but the Rangers are battling for the puck and battling to keep possession of the puck. Trocheck was right in the middle of it. By this point, he had jumped onto the ice. They get Fox and Lindgren out there too. The entire, Panarin, Trocheck, and Lafreniere line is out there. And keep in mind, this is all while the puck is in Arizona's zone. The Rangers actually changed in the middle of an offensive zone possession while keeping said offensive zone possession alive. And then you've got Lindgren and Lafreniere, they're working the puck along the boards. You've got Panarin gets the puck. He's eluding a couple of defenders, maintaining possession for the Rangers. He centers it back to Trocheck. Shot is blocked. Then Lafreniere gets it. He sends a pass, beautiful pass across the ice and in deep to Fox in the left corner. And then Fox passes to Lindgren. Lindgren's in front of the net. Lindgren receives it and buries it from in deep. So Fox and Lindgren both in deep on that play. And Lindgren part of his 3-point night. But we had 10 players on the Rangers contribute to this goal. The entire Mika line, the entire Panarin line, and the entire top 4 as far as the defensemen are concerned. So you know what? Lindgren gets the goal, give out 9 assists on this one. The other 9 players all get an assist, and Lafreniere got an official assist, the secondary here. But getting back to Lafreniere, again, tremendously impressive night. The goal that really stood out to me, though, was his first one. It gave the Rangers a 1-0 lead. You had Lindgren passing into the neutral zone to Panarin. Panarin with a touch pass for Lafreniere. Lafreniere goes into the zone. It's kind of a late developing 2-on-1 break here. Lafreniere is looking to pass. He wants to center it to Trocheck, but the defender's there, and he's kind of taking away the pass. So Lafreniere puts his head back down, takes a shot, seemed to really kind of fake the goalie. I think the fact that he was looking for the pass, maybe the goalie believed that was going to happen too. But what a snipe by Lafreniere here, over the left shoulder into the far upper corner, and just a beautiful goal. I mean, and that's another thing that's different about Lafreniere this year too, is we're seeing this so much more often where he just beats the goalie clean. That happened not very often his first few years in the league. Even last year, it felt like most of the goals that he scored were kind of gritty, dirty goals, and that's great. It's cool that he can do that too. But for the number 1 overall pick, you're looking for a couple more of these wow plays and these plays where he just beats the goalie clean with a really nasty shot. And we've been getting that more this season, and we certainly got it here with this shot over the left shoulder of the goalie. So that was awesome. And then, of course, another goal that he scored to make it 3-1. Continued a trend of the Rangers not just surviving in the shift that follows the goal, but actually excelling there. We talked a lot on here about what a problem that had been for the Rangers this season, but the Coyotes had just scored to knock the Ranger lead down to 2-1, and then Lafreniere scores just 18 seconds later. The shift following a goal makes it 3-1. Trocheck and Panarin, battling for the puck behind the goal and in the corner. It eventually gets back to Trocheck. He passes in front to Lafreniere. Lafreniere stick handles, flips a backhander home, and makes it 3-1 in favor of the Rangers. And then, of course, the empty netter. We talked about the hats going onto the ice. A couple of nice round numbers on this play, too. You had, this is goal number 25 for Lafreniere, and assist number 50 for Fox, and assist number 50 for Trocheck. So a nice way to cap off the night there. Again, the defense certainly left something to be desired, and you got to tighten things up a little better than that in the third period going forward, and certainly in the playoffs. But this was a night for celebration when you think of how many cool things happen and how many milestones were achieved. And Lafreniere, there's times where we've all been frustrated with him, I think. I've talked about, how I'd like to see a few more of those, quote unquote, wow plays in previous years. We're certainly getting them this year, though. But the bottom line, one of the best players in the Rangers this year, somebody that's become completely irreplaceable, and somebody that the Rangers are going to need to bring it come playoff time. So going to keep everything rolling in just a second. I want to switch our attention here to Chris Kreider and him scoring the 300th goal of his career, not once, but twice in a way. Obviously, the one goal got disallowed, but twice Chris Kreider put the puck into the net. We thought that he hit the milestone. It was not to be, but he took care of it not long after that. And we'll get to all that fun stuff in just a second. But first, definitely want to let everybody know that today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by FanDuel. The sports calendar is loaded, and FanDuel is making it even more excited to get in on the action. Because right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $200 you can use to bet the tourney, MLB, NBA, NHL, and so much more. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet a big win. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. All right, let's go ahead and keep everything rolling here. Certainly got to, this is how it's a loaded episode and a lot of things happening. We talked about Quick hitting the milestone. We talked about Lafreniere with the 5-point night and his first hat trick. Only now, nearly 20 minutes into the episode, are we getting to Chris Kreider, one of the longest tenured Rangers of all time, and somebody that's got a shot at perhaps becoming the Ranger all-time leader in goals scored. We'll get to that in just a second, elaborate on that a little bit more. But again, the Rangers did some things in this game that left something to be desired. It would have been really nice to see them close this game with more authority, but it was nice to see all these different milestones. And we'll start with Chris Kreider's fake 300th goal. Basically, you've got Trouba taking a shot, save made. Kreider's there. He buries the rebound. It looks like goal number 300 for Chris Kreider. It looks like a 4-2 lead for the Rangers. The Coyotes challenged it, and there was some contact made with the goalie. I don't even know anymore with these reviews, man. It just feels like they're all like very much case by case, and it's a little bit of a coin toss, and I just never know for sure which way it's going to go. There's been times in the past where it feels like all of these calls go against the Rangers. I don't think that's been quite as true this year. There have been a couple that have gone the Rangers' way, but this one got reversed. And it's funny because Kreider was sitting there on the bench, and of course, I don't know if it was him or one of his teammates. They got him the puck right after he scored, and he's sitting there on the bench, and he gets the word that the call has been overturned, and he just tosses the puck back onto the ice because obviously the goal doesn't count. He doesn't want the puck anymore, but he was able to get a puck later on in this game because he did end up getting what turned out to be his 300th goal. You've got Lindgren and Fox kind of playing pitch and catch through the entire neutral zone, just going right up the ice. And Mika leads Lindgren behind the net. Lindgren passes to Fox at the top of the right circle. And then Fox from kind of the right dot there, he gets it over to Kreider. Kreider deflects it into the net. I think fitting that Kreider scores a redirection goal for number 300 with how good he's gotten to be at that over the years. But that gave the Rangers a 4-3 lead with 14 minutes to go. And he said something to the referee, and I think he asked him, did that one count or something along those lines. So all's well that ends well. Chris Kreider indeed does get his 300th goal on this night. He just had to wait a little bit longer. And, I was wondering actually, like, is there a chance that could have been the same puck? I mean, it probably wasn't. But again, Kreider, the first time, threw the puck back onto the ice, so that puck's back in circulation. Could this have been the same puck? It's at least possible, but enough time had gone by that they probably had a new puck in play by then. But regardless, goal number 300 for Kreider. And he is now exactly 106 goals behind Rod Gilbert for the most all-time in New York Ranger history. And to kind of look at this, we've talked about this in the past, but it's going to be fun to bring it up every so often, as the seasons go by here and Kreider gets closer and closer. So Kreider right now, 32 years old. He's got 3 years left on his contract after this one. He will then be an unrestricted free agent at the age of 35. And as far as him catching Rod Gilbert, I mean, game on. It's going to be interesting. If he plays out this contract, he'll at least get close, you have to think. And then there's the whole X factor of what happens when his contract runs out. If he's still a Ranger at the end of his contract, would they bring him back on a shorter, lower cost deal, 1 or 2 years? I mean, he'll be 35, so he'll be getting up there a little bit, but you got to think at the age of 35, Kreider will still have at least a couple of solid seasons left in him. So does he come back? Does he then, during a new contract, does he then catch Rod Gilbert? Regardless, I mean, there's some people that probably want to see this happen. I think I want to see it happen. Anytime you could see somebody set the new all-time record for your franchise, I mean, why would you not want to see that? There might be some people, though, that, they're big Rod Gilbert fans, that he's Mr. Ranger. They think he should be the guy to be the record holder. And there are certainly some Ranger fans that don't always have the nicest things to say about Chris Kreider. I think his game at times does leave itself open for some critiquing. I think there's certainly some fans that go way overboard with it, though, because it's 300 goals. There's no easy way to do that. And I think all the credit to Chris Kreider for reaching this milestone, this accomplishment. And whether he catches Rod Gilbert or not, I mean, it's going to be a lot of fun to watch as the seasons go by here, assuming that, he sticks around for at least a few more years here. The other big thing in this game, of course, Ranger captain Jacob Trouba back on the ice. Gustafsson is still out, still considered day-to-day, but nice to see the band getting back together here, 1 day after, or 1 game after Ryan Lindgren got back into the lineup. Jacob Trouba comes back as well, and Trouba started this game with K'Andre Miller again, and that lent itself to some controversy, and that's a topic that I think we'll get into like I said, somewhere down the line here. We'll give it a couple of games. It's Trouba's first game back. Got to shake off the rust a little bit, I'm sure. And, that being the case, we'll see how it goes with Miller going forward. But Schneider and Miller played very well together. So I think that's a possibility that at some point or another is at least on the table. For right now, we'll just talk about it briefly. The only thing there is I just don't know that Laviolette is going to drop Trouba out of the top 4, which presumably that's what will be happening there. Because, okay, Fox and Lindgren are still together. And then if you keep Miller and Schneider together, I don't think that's the third pairing. That to me sounds like the second pairing. And then you put Trouba for right now with Jones, and maybe when Gustafsson comes back, it's with him. But either way, I think that's kind of the third line by default. Now, I mean, you could distribute ice time somewhat evenly and have Trouba out there for the kind of minutes that he's used to playing. And of course, there's other situations, all these defensemen, it seems like at one time or another, have had their moment on the second power play unit. And of course, penalty killing, they tend to go to Trouba as one of their go-to guys. So he'll be out there for that as well. Definitely food for thought. We'll see how it goes. Like I said, I'm not ready to, banish Trouba into being a healthy scratch the way that some fans seemingly want to do right now. We'll give him a couple games. We'll give him a couple games to get his legs back under him and hit his stride here. He did okay in this game. I certainly think we've seen him play better, though. He was a -2 on the night, 3 shots on goal, 6 hits, so at least he's back and playing physical. 22 minutes and 29 seconds of ice time for Trouba, which tied with K'Andre Miller for the most on the Rangers. And Peter Laviolette said there was no ice time restrictions on Trouba. He said that once players get cleared, it's like, okay, you're good to go. You're going to play the minutes that you would usually play. That's kind of his philosophy on it. And that was indeed the case, certainly with Jacob Trouba, once again, tying with Miller for the team lead in time on the ice. And honestly, I really don't know what you do once Eric Gustafsson is back. I mean, I don't think Gustafsson has played poorly. I don't think he's really done anything to deserve to lose his job, but I just don't see how you can take Zach Jones off the ice right now. He's played so well recently. Feels like he's all over the ice on, pretty much every game that goes by here. His confidence is sky high. Just an excellent passer, an excellent puck handler. He can get the puck up the ice, and he stepped it up a little bit defensively as well. Scored a goal in this game off of the rush. So Zach Jones playing tremendous hockey, certainly the best we've ever seen him play. We'll see. They got some tough decisions to make. I could see them maybe sticking with Jones, at least for a little while. And maybe it's one of those things where, if we assume that Gustafsson is back in the next game or the one after that, I mean, can you kind of just alternate them every game, and whoever plays better down the stretch is your sixth guy in the playoffs? I mean, that would seemingly be the fairest way to do it. You just make that determination and you take advantage of these last, handful of games that are left here. We'll see how it goes. But yeah, that's a tough decision to make because they're both playing very, very well right now. And when you're playing as well as Zach Jones is, I just don't see how you can pull him off the ice. As far as an unsung hero for this game, I'm going to go ahead and give it to Barclay Goodrow. Now, I realize there are obviously players in this game that had bigger nights, a lot more points, more ice time, more of an impact than Barclay Goodrow, but that's why it's the Unsung Hero Award, right? It's somebody that's kind of under the radar. And just the fact that this man finally scored his second goal of the season. The Rangers were shorthanded. Basically, the Coyotes defenseman fell down, and it resulted in a 2-on-none for the Rangers. Now, Goodrow had Trocheck there, and I think under usual circumstances, you might see him try to pass it to him, but Barclay Goodrow, for probably the first time in his career, maybe got just a tiny bit selfish there, knows that he hasn't scored in like 56 games or whatever it is at this point, and able to beat the goalie one-on-one, and you know what? That's got to be, that's not really his thing anyway, scoring goals, but he gets more than one or two in a season. Last couple of years for the Rangers, he's been setting career highs in goals. He can flirt with something teen amount of goals in a good season, and he just hasn't obviously gotten anywhere near that this year. But I don't know, man. There was something about Goodrow that I feel like put him down for a big goal in the playoffs. He'll score at least once come playoff time for the Rangers. And one of those guys, he goes out there and goes to work. You can be upset about how he's played this year. You could be upset about the contract. You could talk about trading him. You can talk about buying him out. Again, these are all fair things to toss out there. They're fair things to critique as far as Goodrow's game is concerned. But this guy goes out there and goes to work every night. There are few players on the Rangers, with the exception of maybe Ryan Lindgren, as willing to, throw their face in the way of a slap shot as somebody like Barclay Goodrow. Goodrow is, he goes out there and he goes to work every single night. Certainly there are players on the Rangers and around the league with more like just pure talent than Goodrow, but Goodrow's got the guts and he's got the heart and he does give it everything he's got every night. And, as a fourth line player, it's certainly not the end of the world to have Barclay Goodrow out there. That fourth line's played well too. They've had some good shifts. And just nice to see Barclay Goodrow contributing in one way or another. But in this game, finally, of course, getting a goal, which I'm sure that had to be a little bit of a weight off of his shoulders. But that will do it for today, guys. Once again, if you'd like to get in touch with this podcast, please send an email to lockedonnyrangers@gmail.com. Once again, that is lockedonnyrangers@gmail.com. Definitely give us a follow on Twitter as well, @LO_NY_Rangers. Once again, that is @LO_NY_Rangers. And definitely subscribe to the Locked On New York Rangers YouTube channel. Thanks again, guys. I will see you next time.